Before we begin, if you believe that rebuilding a society is not only about bricks and laws but about character and conscience, then you are already part of this journey. Subscribe, stay with us, and let us rebuild not only cities, but souls. Because today we speak about something more dangerous than famine, more destructive than war, more silent than plague. We speak about betrayal. What the three heavenly books say about betrayal. In the Torah, the story of Cain and Abel stands as the first recorded fracture of trust within humanity. One brother rose against another. Not because of hunger, not because of survival, but because of jealousy rooted in the heart. Betrayal began not with armies, but with envy. In the Bible, Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus not as an enemy soldier, but as a close companion. The wound of betrayal came from within the circle of trust. The one who shared my bread has turned against me. Trust shattered from inside. In the Quran, Surah Al-Anfal warns believers, O you who believe, do not betray Allah and the Messenger, nor betray your trusts while you know. Trust is sacred. Breaking it is not only social failure, it is spiritual corruption. All three books agree, betrayal is not merely an act. It is a moral collapse that begins inside the heart long before it appears in action. And nowhere is betrayal more dangerous than in a new society rising from catastrophe. The aftermath of collapse. Imagine a world after disaster. The old governments have fallen. Cities stand wounded. Infrastructure is fragile. Families cling to each other for survival. In such a world, trust becomes currency. Food can be rationed. Water can be purified. Weapons can be manufactured. But trust, once broken, cannot easily be rebuilt. In the early days after catastrophe, people are united by shared pain. They help each other. They sacrifice. They rebuild. Community kitchens form. Watch patrols are organized. Children are protected. For a moment, humanity shines. But slowly, quietly, another force awakens. Self-preservation begins to overshadow shared responsibility. Fear turns into suspicion. Suspicion turns into secrecy. Secrecy turns into hidden agendas. And betrayal begins. Not loudly, but silently. Social betrayals. When neighbors turn into competitors. In new societies, resources are limited. One family may have extra medicine. Another may control access to water. Someone may possess technical knowledge that others depend on. At first, sharing feels noble. But over time, subtle thoughts creep in. What if they take advantage of us? What if we run out? What if helping them weakens us? Competition enters. In history, after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, local warlords often promised protection but secretly exploited the very people they claimed to defend. Communities formed for safety, but power corrupted many leaders from within. After natural disasters in modern times, there have been reports of price gouging, hoarding, and even black market trading of essential supplies. Not because people were evil monsters, but because fear eroded their moral stability. In new societies, betrayal rarely begins with violence. It begins with rationalization. I deserve more. My family comes first. No one will know. And once the first small betrayal goes unchallenged, it sets a precedent. Integrity becomes negotiable. Familial betrayals. The fracture of blood. If betrayal among neighbors is painful, betrayal within family is devastating. After catastrophe, families often form the core of survival units. Cousins, siblings, elders. They rely on each other for emotional and physical stability. But pressure reveals character. Inheritance disputes over land. control of shared resources, power struggles over leadership, decisions. Sometimes, the one who speaks most about unity is secretly manipulating outcomes. In refugee crises across history, there have been cases where family members abandoned weaker relatives to increase their own chances of survival. It is uncomfortable to admit, but stress exposes the true state of the heart. The Torah records Joseph betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery not by strangers, but by blood. Jealousy disguised as necessity. The Bible repeats this theme in multiple narratives of sibling rivalry and power struggles. The Quran speaks of hypocrites who appeared supportive while secretly undermining the community from within. The pattern is consistent. Betrayal from inside wounds deeper than attack from outside. Inner moral failure versus external threats. In the early days of rebuilding, external threats are obvious. Bandits, hostile factions, scarcity. Communities prepare defenses. They organize guards. They build walls. But what defense protects against inner corruption? A leader who begins by serving others may slowly begin to enjoy authority. Decisions once made for the community may begin to serve personal comfort. A merchant trusted to distribute food fairly may begin to favor friends. A spiritual guide may begin to value influence over truth. External enemies strengthen unity. Internal betrayal weakens it. History shows that civilizations rarely collapse solely because of invasion. Often, moral decay precedes external defeat. The Roman Republic weakened internally before the empire fractured. Power struggles, corruption, erosion of civic virtue, all hollowed it out from within. New societies are especially vulnerable because institutions are fragile. Laws are forming. Norms are not yet solidified. One generation's compromise becomes the next generation's culture. If integrity is not fiercely protected at the beginning, corruption becomes foundational. The psychology of hidden betrayal. Why does betrayal flourish in new societies? Because uncertainty magnifies fear. Fear magnifies self-interest. And self-interest, when unchecked by conscience, evolves into betrayal. There are stages: silent doubt, private justification, secret action, public denial, normalization. At stage 1, no one notices. At stage 5, betrayal becomes culture. When children grow up seeing favoritism, dishonesty, or manipulation normalized, they internalize it. They no longer see it as betrayal. Just how things work. This is how moral failure passes from one generation to the next. Not through dramatic collapse, but through quiet compromise. Spiritual vigilance in new beginnings. All three heavenly books emphasize vigilance. Not merely against enemies, but against the self. The Torah commands justice even when it is inconvenient. The Bible emphasizes examining one's own heart before judging others. The Quran repeatedly warns against hypocrisy, the split between outward appearance and inward intention. In a new society, spiritual vigilance must be stronger than military vigilance. Because a single corrupt heart in a position of influence can poison an entire generation. Spiritual vigilance means regular self-accountability, transparent leadership, collective moral reminders, education grounded in integrity, open correction without humiliation. When communities institutionalize accountability early, betrayal struggles to take root. But when charisma replaces character, when loyalty to individuals replaces loyalty to principles, the seeds of betrayal sprout quickly. The illusion of unity. In the early rebuilding phase, unity feels strong. People share stories of survival. They celebrate small victories. They dream of a better future. But unity built only on shared trauma is fragile. True unity must be built on shared values. If values are undefined, trust becomes personality-based. If trust depends only on emotional bonds, it collapses when emotions change. New societies often mistake enthusiasm for stability. But stability requires clear moral frameworks, transparent distribution of resources, fair dispute resolution, intergenerational education. Without these, hidden betrayals multiply beneath the surface while public celebrations continue. And by the time fractures become visible, they are already deep. The warning for the next generation: the most dangerous betrayals are those that children inherit without recognizing. If a generation normalizes small lies, selective justice, or silent complicity, the next generation amplifies it. A child who sees favoritism in leadership learns manipulation. A child who sees hypocrisy in spiritual leaders learns cynicism. A child who sees unpunished betrayal learns opportunism. And slowly, trust erodes across the entire culture. External enemies no longer need to attack. The society collapses under the weight of its own hidden fractures. The question we must ask: when rebuilding after catastrophe, what do we prioritize? Infrastructure? Or integrity? Defense? Or discipline of the heart? Power? Or principle? Because if trust collapses, everything else eventually follows. In this episode, we are not merely analyzing history. We are holding a mirror. Are we guarding against visible enemies, while ignoring invisible betrayal within ourselves? Stay with us. After the Punic Wars, Carthage faced not only external threats from Rome but also betrayal from its own network of allies. Tribes that had fought alongside Carthage shifted allegiance once survival was uncertain. Promises made during crisis were broken when fear outweighed loyalty. What does this teach us? Trust built on convenience is fragile. Alliances in new societies must be rooted in shared values rather than temporary needs. Children growing up in such societies internalize the lesson: promises are negotiable. The culture of betrayal is passed down silently, often unnoticed until it erupts in crisis. Psychological patterns: fear, scarcity, and rationalization. Human beings are wired to protect themselves. Scarcity magnifies fear. Fear rationalizes self-serving actions. Consider these stages. Perceived scarcity: food, water, shelter are limited. Self-interest reasoning: if I do not take what I can, someone else will. Small compromise: a minor betrayal, taking a bit more than fair, hiding supplies. Normalization: actions are repeated, unnoticed, and accepted socially. Cultural embedding: children learn that betrayal is part of survival strategy. This cycle is subtle. It rarely shows in dramatic betrayal. Instead, it emerges quietly, undermining integrity, eroding trust, and eventually corroding society from within. Historical case study 2. The Byzantine Empire's internal corruption. The Byzantine Empire, despite formidable military defenses, frequently succumbed to internal betrayal. Court intrigue, palace coups, and familial plotting weakened the empire far more than external enemies. Generals trusted advisors who were secretly undermining their commands. Governors exploited local populations for personal gain. Even the strongest leaders were betrayed by those closest to them. The lesson: internal betrayal can outlast external threats. A society that survives initial disasters can still fall to moral decay if integrity is not actively guarded. Familial and community betrayals. History consistently shows that betrayal within close-knit units causes the deepest wounds. In post-catastrophe societies, families may prioritize their own survival over collective safety. Community leaders may exploit trust for personal gain. Spiritual guides may manipulate faith to secure influence. These betrayals are often invisible to outsiders but devastating internally. They erode social cohesion, reduce cooperation, and weaken the moral foundation needed to rebuild. Spiritual and moral safeguards. How can societies defend against betrayal? Transparency. Open communication about resource distribution, responsibilities, and decision-making. Shared accountability. Everyone participates in checks and balances, no one individual holds unchecked power. Education in virtue. From early childhood, teaching integrity, empathy, and responsibility. Community enforcement. Norms are upheld collectively, not just by leaders. Spiritual discipline. Rituals and reminders reinforce moral principles, linking everyday actions to higher purpose. The Torah repeatedly emphasizes justice and responsibility for one's actions. The Bible warns that hypocrisy will poison the community from within. The Quran consistently reminds believers of the consequences of betraying trust. All three teachings converge on one point: moral vigilance is not optional in a fragile society. It is a necessity. Modern parallels. Lessons from disaster recovery. Even today, societies emerging from natural or man-made disasters face betrayal at multiple levels. Corrupt aid distribution. Resources meant for communities diverted for personal gain. Political opportunism. Leaders exploit vulnerability to consolidate power. Erosion of social trust. Communities fracture as suspicion spreads. Patterns from history are mirrored in modern crises. Understanding these patterns allows us to anticipate risks and implement safeguards before betrayal becomes structural. Building resilient communities. Resilience in new societies comes not from walls or weapons alone, but from cultivating integrity. Encourage collective responsibility rather than blind loyalty to individuals. Establish clear ethical norms that cannot be bypassed. Train the next generation to value principles over expediency. Recognize that small acts of compromise can snowball into systemic betrayal. Integrity is cumulative. Betrayal is cumulative. The difference determines whether a society survives or collapses under its own moral decay. The role of leadership. Leaders are often the first and last line of defense against hidden betrayal. Leading by example. Personal integrity sets the tone for the community. Maintaining humility. Authority should serve the collective, not the ego. Monitoring moral health. Observing behaviors, rewarding honesty, discouraging secretive manipulation. Intergenerational mentorship. Preparing younger leaders to resist corruption and uphold trust. A society without vigilant leaders may initially flourish under enthusiasm, only to crumble when opportunistic actions gain ground. Recognizing early warning signs. Betrayal does not appear overnight. Early indicators include secrecy in decision-making, critical choices made behind closed doors, favoritism, individuals given undue advantage without merit, manipulation of narratives, shaping perception to justify actions, erosion of shared rituals, community practices replaced with self-interest, compromise on principle, small concessions tolerated, leading to larger violations. Communities that detect and address these warning signs early can prevent systemic moral collapse. Cultural transmission of betrayal. When betrayal becomes normalized, children see dishonesty as strategy. Young leaders emulate opportunism. Spiritual decay is treated as pragmatism. The cycle continues unless actively interrupted. Faith, ethics, and community engagement are the levers to break it. Rebuilding society after catastrophe is not only a matter of repairing walls and roads, it is rebuilding the soul of the community. The pillars that hold this moral reconstruction are integrity in leadership. Leaders must act as moral exemplars. Every decision should prioritize justice over favoritism, fairness over expediency. The Torah teaches in Deuteronomy 16:18, "Appoint judges and officers in all your towns who are just, and fear God, let them judge the people fairly." Integrity must cascade from leaders to every level of society. Transparent governance. When every action is accountable and visible, betrayal finds fewer hiding places. Systems for shared decision-making and public reporting reduce opportunities for secret agendas. Education in virtue. From early childhood, moral education is critical. Teaching honesty, empathy, and responsibility as fundamental values ensures that the next generation internalizes integrity. The Bible reminds us in Proverbs 22:6, "Train up a child in the way he should go, even when he is old he will not depart from it." Community rituals and shared responsibility. Rituals, ceremonies, and collective responsibilities strengthen communal bonds. When trust is continually reaffirmed publicly, betrayal loses its foothold. Spiritual vigilance. The Quran warns in Surah Al-Hujurat 49:12 against suspicion and backbiting. O you who believe, avoid suspicion as much as possible, and do not spy or backbite each other. Spiritual awareness serves as an internal compass for ethical behavior. Detecting hidden betrayal early. A society cannot only react after betrayal occurs, it must anticipate and detect it. Key strategies include observation of behavioral patterns, recurrent secrecy, favoritism, and small unethical compromises are early indicators. Transparent communication channels. Encourage open dialogue and community accountability. No issue should be resolved without public knowledge or record. Peer monitoring. Communities should empower trusted peers to monitor decisions and practices, not as spies, but as ethical safeguards. Anonymous reporting and review. Providing safe channels to report misuse or breach of trust reduces fear and encourages corrective action. Historical example. The Swiss cantons. The Swiss cantons after the Middle Ages provide a blueprint. Amid external pressures and internal diversity, they survived and thrived because they institutionalized transparency, collective decision-making, and strict accountability. Leadership rotated, decisions were recorded, and communities educated youth in civic responsibility. Betrayal was not absent, but the structures prevented small compromises from snowballing into systemic corruption. Family is the foundation of trust. Families are the first microcosm of society. Preventing familial betrayal is crucial. Clear roles and responsibilities. Each member understands obligations and boundaries. Conflict resolution mechanisms. Disputes are addressed through mediation, not secrecy or manipulation. Ethical education at home. Teaching children the value of honesty, empathy, and self-restraint reinforces social integrity. Historical examples, such as Joseph's eventual rise in Egypt despite being betrayed by his brothers, demonstrate that families can overcome betrayal when honesty, resilience, and moral courage are preserved. Building resilience against external and internal threats. Resilience requires integrating vigilance against both external and internal threats. Internal audits. Regular assessment of community practices, resource distribution, and leadership decisions. External partnerships. alliances with neighboring communities based on verified trust, shared ethics, and mutual accountability. Resource redundancy. Avoid scarcity-driven betrayal by ensuring multiple sources of essential supplies. Cultural reinforcement. Storytelling, history, and rituals emphasize the consequences of betrayal and rewards of integrity. The role of forgiveness and correction. Communities cannot eradicate betrayal entirely, but they can correct and forgive in ways that restore trust. Transparent confession. Encouraging those who commit minor betrayals to admit faults without fear of disproportionate punishment. Proportional consequences. Punishment should be fair, restorative, and aim to rebuild relationships rather than purely to punish. Education and reintegration. Teaching lessons from mistakes ensures the betrayal is not repeated. The Torah emphasizes restitution, the Bible speaks of reconciliation, and the Quran encourages correction through guidance rather than merely retaliation. Spiritual guardrails for future generations. Children who witness integrity are more likely to practice it. Strategies include role models, leaders, elders, and spiritual guides who consistently act ethically. Ethical storytelling. Narratives highlighting consequences of betrayal and benefits of honesty. Participation in governance. Involving youth in decision-making builds accountability and appreciation for communal trust. Regular reflection. Encouraging self-assessment and moral introspection to internalize principles. Case study. Post-war rebuilding. After World War II, societies like Germany and Japan faced enormous physical and moral devastation. Their success in rebuilding was not only technical but ethical. Transparent institutions prevented corruption. Education emphasized democratic values and moral responsibility. Community participation fostered accountability and trust. Communities that ignore moral reconstruction often relapse, despite physical recovery. Trust is more fragile than steel, and betrayal spreads faster than fire if left unchecked. The cost of ignoring hidden betrayals. Unchecked betrayal is silent but lethal. Communities fracture internally before facing external enemies. Children internalize unethical behavior as normal. Spiritual decay erodes hope, making survival a transactional rather than moral endeavor. Integrity is not a luxury. It is a survival tool in new societies. The smallest compromises today become the foundations of tomorrow's collapse. As we conclude this episode, remember, rebuilding society is not just about survival. It is about preserving humanity. Guard against hidden betrayal. Teach integrity. Empower leaders who act ethically. Educate the next generation in virtue. Reflect. Discuss. Act. The future is built not on walls alone, but on the strength of trust, the courage of honesty, and the vigilance of hearts and minds committed to righteousness. If you found this message powerful, share it. Engage with your community. Help build a society where integrity is the first law, and betrayal finds no foothold. Because every small act of honesty contributes to the survival of civilization itself.